welcome to Series 2 of Tripod, our regular video podcast series in association with the Seaver Group. I'm Martin Moodie.
I'm Roger Jackson.
Roger, great to be back with you for Series 2. We had a lot of very positive feedback to Series 1, and I know we got some great guests lined up for Series 2. You feeling good about it?
Yeah, it's great to be back, Martin. I think our industry is in a far stronger position than it was when we finished season 1. Great to be back for season 2. We've got some unbelievable guests this year as well. Very exciting, and I can't wait for everyone to hear those podcasts. It should be really good fun.
No, it's going to be good indeed. So talking about great guests, perfect segue. Shall we bring our very special Irish guest in for today?
Yeah, let's bring him in.
So this episode's special guest, a very special guest, I would emphasize, and someone we've been wanting to host on the show ever since Roger and I began Tripod, and therefore a great guest for our opening episode of Series 2 is Barry Geoghegan, an irrepressible Irishman who walks, talks, probably sleeps duty-free. It's a channel he loves and in which he specializes, of course, in the wines and spirits category. His passion for and knowledge of which I consider just about unrivaled in our industry. And I reckon, you know, if there was such a role as ambassador for global duty-free, then today's guest is that person. Barry is founder and commercial director of Duty Free Global in his native Ireland, a company created way back in 2010, and which has become synonymous with innovation, energy, willingness, I think, to champion independent family business and much more besides. He's got a heck of a portfolio. We might hear about some of that today, and he's a heck of a character. Barry Geoghegan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martin. Really delighted. I've just been saying to myself, I've really enjoyed this series, and you've done a great job. And you know, through the year, it's been the last 2 years have been so tough for us all. But this has been something I look forward to, and what you've done with the virtual got us all back on, you know, speaking together. And really, I think the industry appreciates that. So never underestimate what's happened in the last 2 years. Hats off to you and Dermot for that. Good for you guys.
No, thank you, Barry. Well, it's been a tough old grind for all of us over the last 2 and a bit years, and hopefully 2022 will just be that little bit brighter. I'm going to kick off, Barry, just before passing over to my co-host, Roger. I just wanted to talk about your bloodline in Duty Free. Barry is a very proud one. I knew your dad. I knew him well. He's I'm showing my age in Duty Free, but Mick Geoghegan, of course, was one of the pioneers of our industry. He was among the team that went out to Dubai Duty Free and set it up from Air Inter, and he had an outstanding career, of course, with ARI. Just tell us about that paternal influence, Barry, if you will, and when and how you came to know about our industry.
Yeah, so I guess I was brought up in it. My father was always, before Aer Inter, he was Aer Lingus, and he actually worked in JFK at one stage, and my mum was an air hostess. So growing up where I grew up in Dublin in Malahide was very much an airport themed. Most of the careers had something to do with it. A pilot was a next door neighbor, and you know, most of the people were air hostesses. And back in the 60s and 70s, that was quite glamorous. So Dad was the very first employee of Aer Inter International. So he's business development. So he does what Sue Kelly and the team are doing these days. So Dad wasn't a retailer, and he never proposed to be a retailer. His job was to knock on doors. Small country, he said to me, but we've got a big heart when it comes to overseas and culture. So he said, we probably, because we've never really had an empire or a colony, we've always had this view that we can talk to people and treat them as equals. And Dad said that's one of the strengths of the culture. So because the industry had started in Ireland, there was quite a proud specialization. They felt they could go there and talk very comfortably about the duty-free channel. So Dad's job was, he visited 88 countries, so it was really extensive. And it wasn't just duty-free, it was like selling fire services and selling other ancillary revenues, but just basically going to airports and around the world. He spent a lot of time in Hong Kong and was part of the Beijing business, spent time going to Russia, he spent time going to Africa, was one of his main areas that he visited, and then the Dubai thing, which as I say, he just gets the door open, and then the geniuses of Colin and George and Sooty, and they build it. So he basically understood that that was his role. So it was in the DNA, but growing up, everybody in Ireland knew what duty free was. You can't get on a plane and not come back with a duty free bag. It was just part of the journey, part of the experience.
Yeah, and you mentioned Malahide, actually, Barry. Last time I was there, guess who I was interviewing? It was Dr. Brendan O'Regan.
Oh,
I remember going to his home, the great founder of Duty Free back in 1947. I went to his home, and we went to the local, you'll know it, the local hotel, and we had a very memorable lunch. A couple of years before he passed, Barry.
Oh, nice story. Nice one, Martin. Yeah, no, it is. It's you know, we're so close to the airport. It really, the local economy very much relies on it, and you could see it during COVID. It was tough because everybody was at home and nobody was getting on planes. So you feel it in a small population when so much of it's reliant on the airport economy.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to pass over to my much younger and much better looking co-host now. Roger, over to you.
Might be younger, Martin. I'm not sure about the latter. Hey, Barry, great to see you.
You too, Roger. You too, always. Yeah.
It was nice to see you in Cannes as well. So I know we caught up a few months ago. I guess the first question I've got for you, Barry, is about wine. Actually, my first interaction with you was probably around wine, actually. And I know obviously you've now moved on into spirits and the rest of the portfolio. But tell me a bit about where your love of wine came from. I heard about your father, and I knew he was big in travel retail, and I knew there was a history there. I didn't realize he was the #1 employee of Arianta International, so I've learned something new. But where did your love and knowledge of wine come from? Because I know you're very passionate, and I also know you're very knowledgeable as well.
Yeah, I started off after university. I did economics in UCD, and I started off working in banking in London, and it wasn't for me. Very quickly, I knew it wasn't for me. So I couldn't wait to get back to something that I actually gave a damn about. So I basically, I had a colleague friend from uni whose family had a Spanish trading business, and they were doing things like ceramics from Spain, steel from Bilbao, and they had a small hobby, in inverted commas, where they imported some wine and olive oil, but they didn't really know what they were doing. And they just said, look, you're a young graduate, would you be interested? I was literally 20 at the time in a little Peugeot 205 van, and I was literally doing the deliveries, going to knock on doors of restaurants, and it was Spanish only. So it was called Ibor wines at the time. And then around 91, 2 years later, when the currency crisis kicked in, their main construction business was really in trouble, and the company went into liquidation. So I managed, I don't know how I convinced the liquidator that I should buy over the asset of the wine company and try and turn it around. So I don't know, I literally hadn't a bean, but I managed to convince him. And my first thing to do was, even though I absolutely love Spanish wine and still do to this day, because I've been so many times to Rioja and to all the regions, that I turned the business not just Spanish, but to include Chile and Australia, New Zealand, France. And I literally drove down in that same Peugeot 205, drove down to Bordeaux for Vinexpo and went to see the people, realized that this was a product that, is about life, about culture, about local cuisine. It really is a living product, and it's nature, and it's agriculture at the end of the day. So really fell in love with the subject, started to do studies, started off in the appreciation courses, then I did the diploma, then I finished the diploma, I did the Master of Wine the first year, and then I didn't finish the Master of Wine because Orla then turned, my wife, who I met in UCD, turned around and said she's expecting twins. She said, you are not going to spend another year traveling to the UK, get back home here and help me out. So I didn't finish that at the time. But what I did do was I went and did a wine MBA, which was in 5 universities, Bordeaux Business School driven, and University UC Davis, California, University Católica Santiago, Chile, KO Business School, Tokyo, and then University of South Australia, really international. And after that, I did a lot of lecturing. So I was doing, for the WSET diploma students, I was doing lectures for 10 years. So the Bordeaux lecture, which is one of my favorite regions, the business of wine, which is definitely my favorite topic, how to lose money or make money. It's all about that at the end of the day. And then the New World wine. So a bit of legacy stuff with Bordeaux, a bit of where the world was going, and then a bit of what's the practical side of the wine business. So really just an amazing subject. And that's why I ended up knocking on the door of travel retail, because I thought, is there an opportunity for somebody who loves this product to come into this channel? And I tipped my toe in the water, and that's how I ended up moving from domestic, because I was the sales director of one of the biggest importing companies in Ireland, but 5 million people, it's tiny, size of Greater Birmingham. You need to spread your wings a bit. And I thought travel retail, because of the family heritage, and I kind of had some good contacts, and through the family connections, let me go and check it out. And I literally, as you said, in 2010, I flew to Singapore just on the wing and just knocked on doors and see, would there be an appetite for a wine specialism in the channel? And that's how it started.
And how do you go about selecting your partners? I know you've got plenty of great partners, and some of them are good friends of mine, actually.
Yeah.
And I know they all enjoy working with you. But how do you go about selecting them? Because we all know it works both ways, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good question, Roger. I mean, funny, they don't know this, but we actually have a scorecard. And I don't mean that we're Germanic about it. We're not actually we're typical Irish, we're pretty chilled. But all we do is, the first thing, the heaviest weighting is compatibility. If we like each other and think that we could go for a beer with them, then they'll probably want to work with us too. It's kind of compatibility is the driver. I mean, and then realism and expectation is about, it is a channel that some people might over egg it and think, oh my God, the volumes must be enormous in travel retail. They don't just get the balance between visibility and the importance of the channel from a brand life cycle. So when we get the balance right, that's where we really find the right partners, because we do, in a very humble way, I'd say we get a lot of people asking, could they participate in the portfolio? But not everything will work for because we're a unique bunch. I mean, I hate to say it, and I know people don't like the word club, but we are a club. We all watch each other's backs and very loyal to each other. And I love that side of it, which, when I was in the just pure wine business, go to all the wine shows, and it was wine. We all had some common theme. What I love about this is some of our friends are in fashion or in perfume and cosmetics, and we're all equally helping each other out and watching each other's backs. And we're like a traveling circus. When we travel, if somebody is ill, we all rally around them, and it's an incredible bunch of people. So I could never see myself doing anything but this forever now. And at the moment, one of my sons, Max, is doing an internship with us as well at the moment, and he studied Mandarin in university, and he's just actually got a job at Kerry Group, so he's just doing this. But they're all looking at this industry going, wow, what a eclectic bunch of people that you guys meet on a regular basis, and lovely people as well. We're we're blessed to have such a good bunch of people in our friend circle.
Yeah, you're right. I've been in the industry 13 years, and I've known you all of that time, and it wouldn't be the same place without you. So don't go changing industries on us, Barry.
No, absolutely. And look, Roger asked you about your commercial partners, Barry. You mentioned your family, and so I'll just touch on that briefly, if I will. Your life partner, Orla.
Yeah.
She has a business with an interesting name, Max Benjamin. There's a story there. I know it, but some of our listeners might not. So quickly, just tell us about that.
Yeah, my wife Orla, we met in UCD in first year, so we're a long time together. Orla comes from a very entrepreneurial family. Her father, Hugo, who's a great mentor to me, she has started a business. She went to the States and she started working in a candle store. And then at nighttime, she said, can I go and see where they factory, where you manufacture? Very inquisitive mind. And then she thought, I'm going to open a candle business. And at the time, she called it Oberg because her family name is Vandenberg, and thought Oberg was kind of half Irish. She's Irish, but her father was from Belgium. And then her brother Mark said, the brand name isn't great. And at the time when our twin boys were born, they were called Max and Ben. Mark came up with the idea of calling the brand Max Benjamin. And he's not called Benjamin, it's just Ben, but this sounds better. It just sounds like more of a global brand than Max Ben. And when that happened, we had only 2 sons. And then 3 years later, Sean came along. And the joke in the trade, as Martin is referring to, is when everybody is out in Gary Maxwell, who we went to his 60th and recently in Celtic Manor, Gary will always do the joke to the forgotten son, because Sean's name isn't on the brand name, they give me a hard time. The son that Barry doesn't love, and we do. And of course, we should come up with another brand name for Sean, but he's now forgotten. It's just, he wasn't born then. That's the real truth of the story. But I get such a hard time from the guys in the industry for calling a brand after 2 of your 3 sons. So yeah,
Wow.
I deserve it. And Orla, yeah, and that business now is yeah, they're really, you know, they're really doing well internationally, and they're, you know, they've got candles, they've got fragrance, they've got diffusers, they've got really, and it's a very premium brand. It's like it's in a lot of the high-end stores around the world, in Harrods and Fortnum and Mason. They've done a good job, which is rare from Ireland, because Ireland usually is just famous for whiskey and Guinness and cream liqueurs, and not necessarily for producing quality fragrance products. So it's quite unique what they've done.
Yeah, great story, and probably explains why Barry Geoghegan burns the candle at both ends, I suspect.
For one night only.
I can confirm that's true. You mentioned a mentor, actually. I think you mentioned your father-in-law as a mentor. And I know obviously your dad must have been a huge mentor as well. Who would you say your key mentors or influencers have been along the way?
I mean, not that I'm being politically correct. I'd say there's tons of them, but I'll mention some names because you'll know them and you'll know why I'm mentioning them. If I just think in my head, everybody's been so fair and kind and helpful. It's unbelievable in this industry. When I first traveled, I went to Singapore. I met Jane Grant, John Sutcliffe, and John Syme for lunch, and that was my first travel read. And they said, "Okay, you know him. You know." They kicked it off. Middle East, Colin and George have been unbelievable, and of course, Sutty has continued to be fantastic support and really helpful. Then, if I go to Asia, Sunil has been unbelievable. Jonathan Chaps Holland, unbelievably generous with their time. We've traveled to countries together, unbelievable. Harry Kartassis, who's really a lovely man as well. He's been fantastic. James Kafori down in Australia, unbelievable help. You know, nothing is a problem. He'll go out of his way to walk from one side of a show to the other to introduce you to somebody you didn't know. If I think about in Ireland, David Spillane has been unbelievably good mentor for me over the years. He, you know, ex-Nestle. Carl from Butlers has been fantastic. Jane, I mentioned Jane Grant. Catherine Bonelli has been fantastic in France for that side of the business. And then I'd go in the Americas. Patrick Nielsen, Roger Thompson have been fantastic. Stevie Corrigan's been amazing. The Pasternak family, phenomenal. I mean, honestly, there's so many. John Gallagher down south, and then my own team, Natalie and John Kilmartin and Kerry, have all been phenomenal. So really, it's a combination of the network. If you're good to the network and if you respect the network, they'll really help you, and they genuinely will give you a leg up. And I think so. I would say they're all mentors because they all have specialism in different regions or in different products. And it's a family that rises at all tides. And that's how I look upon it. And that's genuine. They really do support you, and they really care, and they really, you know, they rock up for your birthday and they rock up for significant. And if something happens in your life, they're very supportive also. So it's a ton of mentors, but it's a ton of energy, and absolutely Martin and Dermot are right top of that list. I mean, unbelievable what Dermot and Martin do when I start. I'm humbled by it. I mean, emailing people that I'd never heard of, and, you know, literally going out of their way. It wasn't about commercial gain for those guys. You guys were way above way above and beyond the call of duty. It was phenomenal. So thanks to Martin and Dermot particularly for that also, sincerely.
Yeah, and I can only echo that as well. I think we're very lucky to have, I know the majority of those people, you mentioned Barry, and some of them I don't, but I think we're so lucky. If we were talking about a domestic on-trade or off-trade business here, that just doesn't really exist. There's a bit of that still, but, you know, unfortunately, most people are just looking out for themselves. And I can only echo, I've had the majority of those people have really supported me as well. So I can only agree with that. Whilst we're still talking about the industry, what would be your one wish for the industry if we could, you know, if we could change things or improve things? What would be your one wish for our industry?
I'd be very direct on this. Martin has done admirable work with the Trinity Forum and bringing all the different stakeholders together, and I think that's phenomenal, and it's the way to go, and it's absolutely the right thing to do. But to be honest with you, I mean, I'm not an operator, but I can see the benefits of sharing information. And as far as I'm concerned, I just think the whole thing about the mags and the whole thing about the concession model is outdated, in my opinion. I think the idea that people sit in silos and don't share what they each know to help each other. I mean, if ever there's a time in our lives when we talk about this thing, we're all of this together. Well, actually, let's act it. because we sure as hell have to be. We're never going to increase penetration rates. We're never going to increase average transaction value unless we share. And the only way to share is joint ventures. Joint venture model for me is, in my humble opinion, is a better model. You're all in it for pain and for gain. Start off, with a much more level playing field. We know there's going to be, peaks and troughs. There's going to be speed bumps in the future. But the truth is, if you've got a joint venture model, you're all focused on the same thing, the same bottom line. You take my expertise, your expertise, bring them all together and add them together and make something better. And then there's no issue with GDPR and data. It all of a sudden becomes part of the same structure. So why sit in silos and say, look, I could help him here. I could give him more space to activate more. And I could help him here and tell him that those passengers will never buy that because that's not their pattern. Share and the tides will rise. Terrible penetration rates, 15% is lousy. It's not acceptable. We've got a captive audience. We're not hitting them. The only way to hit them is change the models. Joint venture is a lot more, and you can do short-term joint venture or long-term joint venture. The cost of setting up a company isn't prohibitive, and people just don't want the bureaucracy and the red tape of it. But in my opinion, the industry needs to stop this. The Trinity Forum is absolutely spot on what Martin and Dermot are doing. You've got to share, and the only way to everybody benefits from sharing and nobody benefits from sitting in silos. And we've been doing it for years, and the industry will not thrive unless we realize we talk about it. And again, the clear thing there is the digital way of communicating the relevance of the channel to the younger generation before, during, and after the journey. It can only happen if it's a joint venture approach, sharing all the different stakeholders' assets. It has to happen. It can't just be you're a retailer, you stick to your knitting. No, we all have the same goal, is to increase the revenue in order to make international flights and cruise business and border business more profitable and more efficient. We know infrastructure costs money. We know the state has to spend a lot of money. But if you don't change that, I just think, honestly, it's broken record for me. I was going, oh, not again, guys, please. Tying somebody into a guarantee when there's no guarantees in this world anymore. We just saw that the last 2 years. It's rubbish, in my opinion. And I'm not the person that has to go out to do these tenders. I think the model's outdated. I think joint ventures is the way to go. And I think some of the operators think that way, and I think good for them. And I'm not going to, I don't want to be, promoting one or the other. I think they all have their merits. But the bottom line is there is a captive audience which we cannot tap because we're all sitting in silos. So if we get our heads out of that, maybe then the industry we already have the numbers of packs. We just don't have the way to appeal to their sensibilities and make it relevant to make them purchase. Just make it relevant. And that's the only way to do that, is to share knowledge, I think.
Absolutely. Well, that's a heck of a good wish, and never have those principles and values that you just espoused, Barry, been more important than right now as we start to emerge from all this wretched gloom of the last couple of years. So bravo.
Yeah,
bravo.
And I couldn't agree more with both of you. The thing I'd add as well is we're about to see this play out real life in Spain. And I think that's going to be very, very interesting to watch, obviously involving Dufry and Aena. But we're about to see this play out, and I think we've got a chance, and I don't just mean from a duty-free perspective, I'm including Aena in this as well. I think we've got a chance actually for some pragmatism, for everyone coming together and making that work, and getting a good outcome for everyone. But let's see what happens. But I couldn't agree with Barry more. We talk about penetration rates not getting above 12%. Hasn't moved for 20 years, even though obviously passenger numbers are increasing. And as passengers increase post-pandemic, if that rate percentage stays the same, obviously we're just going to drop in reality, because more people are going through and we're going to be selling to even less. And I think the Spanish case study is going to be a really interesting one to watch later this year, because we've got a chance to start fixing this. And I really do hope there's some pragmatism from all parties involved there, and we get a good outcome for the industry.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that one plays out. Well, Barry, we're going to move away from the industry in a moment and take you to our resident duty-free desert island. But just as a segue into that, I want to just give our viewers an insight into some of your interests outside work. I was priming Barry the other day, Roger, about this interview, and I did suggest to him that I'd heard that he was a real Manchester United fan, and I sense steam coming out of my laptop all the way from Ireland. So you better put the record straight on that, Barry.
Yeah, I'm massive sports fan. Well, first of all, anybody wearing a green jersey, I'm with them 100%. Irish rugby, Irish football, the Dubs and GAA, all the obvious things, Leinster rugby. But in terms of football, yeah, my team has been since first game 1976 has been Liverpool, and they are not Manchester United, Martin. They are our rivals. And I have to say, yeah, I quite enjoyed them being rivals, especially in Cannes this year. Enjoyed the time me and Tav were high-fiving the whole time. We had particularly good results when we were there in Cannes. I think that thereafter Cannes is a blur because that was the highlight. Now I've been a Liverpool fan forever, and before, back I said 76, my dad took me over on a Viscount. Remember, it was from Dublin to Liverpool, and I actually could get into the cockpit, even though it was only an hour's flight. I remember it well. It was my first pizza, and it was my first time in Liverpool. It was amazing. It was Keegan, Callaghan, all the old Liverpool team. Fabulous. I loved it. Massive Celtic fan as well, as most Irish people are. But again, they're the two clubs that I would go and support, and love the history of the clubs, and love the what they stand for. I mean, great result for Liverpool last night. Yeah, it's just a passion. My kids are equally. My wife blames me for that. They literally watch the pre-season friendlies, and they'll stream it if they can't get it on a video. Yeah, sport is really big thing for me. It always has been. And I played a little bit of sport and played a bit of football just in the Irish League and the League of Ireland. But it was a great experience, because even as a kid, imagine being a 17-year-old student and getting a check for playing something you loved. It was a tiny check, but it was enough for a few beers, and that's like the best beers you ever had in your life. You played this game of sport, and you've been given something for playing. That was a really great experience. But yeah, no, Liverpool is my team in football for sure, and Celtic. Those two guys.
All right.
Who did you play for, Barry, and what position?
I played for UCD. So the university team, UCD, are in the League of Ireland, and they gave them, at the time I was on a soccer scholarship program. So basically it meant that they paid for my fees and all that sort of good stuff. But it was great. Like, we toured, we played the Singapore national team in the National Stadium, played the Thai national team. We toured Western Australia. We won the World University Championships in New Mexico. It was amazing. So you're only 17, 18, and you're traveling around the world playing football. So it was a decent standard. It was League of Ireland, which is not it's not a very high level. It's getting better at the moment, but that was the highest standard we can play here. It was great. You're playing, some of the games. The first game I played actually was against Derry City, and I was marking Dennis Stewart. He used to play for Man City. I remember he wouldn't shake my hand because I put the ball through his legs, and I shouted nuts. He didn't like that. Just having a bit of fun.
What position?
I was midfield, right side or centre midfield, but I think as I got older, I probably went back to full back because I didn't have the pace to do box to box anymore. But it was a great experience, and really enjoyed it. But love all sport, and I mean, during lockdown, when they started, the sport came back as well. It was such a focus for everybody. We needed something live as opposed to watching recording stuff. It was great, and that kept the spirits high for everybody during the tough times we've gone through.
Fantastic.
Great story, Barry. Well, look, we are, as promised, going to take you to our resident desert island. It, of course, enjoys duty-free status, and we're going to give you a very well-earned break from all that work you've been doing. And we're going to give you some creature comforts, of course, as we do, Barry. So I'm going to pass back over to you, Roger. You've sailed the boat into the desert island and about to provide Barry with some creature comforts.
So Barry, you're on your island, and the first item you're allowed is one book. Which book would you read? Which book would you bring, and why?
I'll be honest with you. I'm the sort of guy that gets on a plane and reads The Economist short snippets. I'm not a really good. I don't read fiction. I love biographies, and I love sports biographies and history. I genuinely prefer reading snippets like the Moodie Davitt Report. I'm not just saying that, Martin. I genuinely do. That's just my focus. I'm not good because I'll fall asleep after 4 pages, or I'll stick on the music. So it'll probably be something like that. It'll probably be a sports biography. I had to choose a book, but I'm not a great book reader. I'm much better at just listening to podcasts, and this is more my thing, to be honest. Maybe it's my attention span or my age or something. I don't know, but yeah, that would be. Sorry, I'm not in the book club, guys, I'm afraid. Oops.
No problem. The next one, I'm sure you will have an answer for us for, given your history of your father and your job now. Duty-free item. I'm going to give you 2 because I don't think we could let you go without picking a wine.
Oh, that's
So
great.
what one non-wine duty-free item and what wine duty-free item would you pick?
Okay. I probably, nothing against all the other categories. I know Hervé from Chanel will know that I do love that particular brand. And he always, because we're on the TFWA committee together, and he knows that's my, and he goes, keep wearing it, keep wearing our brand. But generally speaking, that's my only treat would be to me. But then be something, but typically I always buy duty free. It doesn't matter where I go in the world, because it's kind of like you gotta do what we preach. I would probably, from a wine point of view, I could go back to my history of Rioja, and I love Rioja, Cune, and Muga. And I'm really proud of some of the wines we work with. The Taylor's Wakefield Cabernets are amazing from the Clare Valley. And I love some of the Kiwi Pinots, Martin, as well. There's some fantastic. But probably if I was really pushed on a wine, it would probably end up being Bordeaux, because, you know, it just, if it's a good vintage, it just seems to hit that spot. And it's everything. It's food, it's culture, it's family get-togethers. It just has that memory as a child. It's probably I've got a few favorites. I'd have to go left bank and right bank, but you're only allowed one. Left bank would probably be Chateau de Cru-Bacayo, because I love the Saint Julien. I love just the combination where it hits about 60% Cabernet, 65% Cabernet. So it's a little bit easier, a bit softer than the Santa Steph's. And then if it was the other bank, it would be something like Chateau Petit Village, Pomerol, soft Merlots. So I just love wines that are ready. And that's one of the challenges of Bordeaux, that you have to cellar them, and you've got to have a decent cellar to lay them down. Whereas that's why Rioja works, because Rioja is ready to drink. Reservas, Crianza, good to go when they do the investing for you in their cellars. So that's kind of one. And it probably is this, so the wine would be a Bordeaux. And I know I should pick another product, but I'm going to stick to, I'd probably go for a whiskey, because I've gone from being not knowledgeable to really learning a lot about it. And of course, I love the pot still Irish whiskies. I'm really loving those. But recently, I've been really exposed to very, very good bourbon. And we're working with Sazerac. They've got an incredible portfolio, and I've tried them all. And I've literally been investing, and I mean, trying to buy them on sites and stuff. Just find them really good. And again, I think bourbon does the same job at Rioja. It's got that sort of, you know, that beautiful flavor, that caramel flavor, that smokiness. It's easier. And some of the wheated bourbons from Weller, I just love. So say a Weller 12 would be Desert Island, because you can sip it and share it with more people. Because the wine, if Martin is with me, will be gone in 15 minutes. The bourbon might last a little bit longer. So it just, you know, keeps that Desert Island going a little bit longer. So probably be a Weller 12 and a Du Cru Bacayo if I had to pick two. Sorry for all other categories. Should have been supporting you, but next time.
The only thing I disagree with, I'm not sure how long the whiskey would last. I agree with everything else if you and Martin on the island together. So you've got your book, well, you've got The Economist or Moodie Davitt.
Oh, Moodie Davitt.
You've got your wine, your whiskey. What music, what album, what one song would you take with you?
Well, Martin knows that I'm a big muso, so everything from Beatles to Dylan to Bowie to them all. But being from Malahide, there's two of the U2 members are from Malahide. Edge and Adam are from Malahide. In fact, Adam is from the same road. So it's 100% U2. I mean, 71 gigs. Love them. Absolutely think there's nobody else rocks it live like they do. I mean, the Stones do a good job, but not as good as U2. So biased because they're Irish, and biased because I've seen them so many times. But it would probably have to be U2. But if I was to pick one song, sentimentally, I would pick Raglan Road, because you know, it's got well, the Luke Kelly version, or even the Sinead O'Connor version, but it's such an amazing song. And Martin did a lovely tribute to my mum when she passed recently from COVID with that song. And I have to thank Jess and John Howells, because they put a beautiful backtrack to, they really put a lot of work into it. I got a lot of friends from the industry, and thank you for all who did that tribute. It was really touching, and my brothers were just blown away by it, but it was really special. And again, back to the whole duty-free family thing. So kind of Raglan Road, and it's kind of, it's very haunting Irish, and it's poetry and music at the same time. And Irish ballads are kind of just childhood memories. And my dad used to love, you know, they'd all know he'd always put out the whiskey and start to sing songs. So that's kind of part of our culture as well. So it's got a happy memory for me. So that song, so yeah, and it resonates with the recent 2 years as well. So that would be the song, and well, definitely be U2 would be the band. No, absolutely, forever, forever.
On Raglan Road on an autumn day, I saw her first and knew that her dark hair would weave a snare that I might one day rue. Absolutely
beautiful,
beautiful and haunting words, aren't they, Barry?
Great memories.
Wow.
Great memories. Yeah, no, it's funny. I kind of, when I'm in town, I actually walk down Raglan Road, especially when it's autumn, and just to see it. I think I sent you a picture, Martin, the last time I did. I just took a picture of the leaves. It's weird. It's not the streets. It's just the memories are just, they're just great. They're great, and it's what it's all about. Sitting around with friends and just reminiscing on times past, and it's lovely. It's lovely, and I guess that's what Ireland's famous for, the poetry and music as well. Is something we're very proud of here as well. Very proud of.
Lovely, and I that one I do agree with. Unbelievable choice. And finally, on the desert island, it's time for a party. So you've got a dinner party. You will have 3 guests, either historical or living. Can be family, can be celebrities, can be whoever you want. Who would you like as your 3 guests?
Well, I'd love to sort of balance it. So, because parties like that are about people you respect and understanding what made them tick, and then also about having fun. So it's got to get the balance right. So the first person I would pick would be somebody who I hugely respect for his incredible work for peace in this country, was John Hume. And John Hume Sr., and by the way, John Hume Jr. would be equally good company, another gentleman, takes after his father. But John Hume was just an incredible man, pacifist, didn't believe in the gun, believed in you can talk and you can negotiate. Huge respect. In our country, he's kind of like our Nelson Mandela. We think so much of him, and he really, really went above and beyond the call of a politician and sacrificed so much of his own personal time for it. So I'd love to sit there and chat to him. I have had the pleasure of meeting him before in Derry, and just think what a great guy. And for any culture, any Nobel Prize winner, all of the above. The second person would be industry specific, and it's funny, Martin, you mentioned him, would be Brendan O'Regan, because I'd love to hear, we're sitting there, we're thinking the Americans are getting off the plane, we should sell them stuff. I'd love to hear what his brain was thinking when he thought of the duty-free business, because it was such visionary. I mean, I know there was stuff going on with the boat planes before that, but that was really the first airport opportunity, and it really kick-started this whole industry. As we jokingly say, hashtag you're welcome. I have to keep doing that more often, Martin. We've been told all the Irish are going to keep saying hashtag you're welcome to the industry, but I'm not good at doing that because we're not good at being arrogant. But so Brendan O'Regan would just be fascinating to hear his story, and I genuinely would love to hear it. I mean, I know London Supply were doing something in the Port of Argent in Buenos Aires, but this was the airport. This is the first time an airport really kicked it off, and so great respect for him. And probably to finish with, as I said, need a bit of fun. I'd stick Billy Connolly into the mix, because you just be falling off your chairs laughing the whole time. Even when he speaks, I start laughing. Before he even says anything, I start laughing. Even when he does his silly go, I just think a bit of humor like that would be important for some of the dinner parties. We save the world with John Hume. We could save the industry with Brendan O'Regan, but Billy Connolly would just have you falling off the place, and we'd be enjoying the wine and the whiskey and enjoying life and celebrating all the good things. Just a very funny personality, and everybody's favorite comedian. I just think he's one of the funniest people. When you saw him in Parkinson back in the day, oh jeez, tears, literally tears running down my face. He's so funny. Yeah, I think he'd add a bit of color to that lunch for sure. For sure.
Well, that sounds a heck of a dinner party, and I know a lot of other people would love to get into that party with you, Barry. You're a very respected guy in our industry. You're also very popular, and very popular for the right reasons. It's the way you carry yourself. It's the way you help others. It's the way you always look out for others. It's the way you always do things, not necessarily by the textbook, but by the book in terms of sound human values. And I think there's probably not a country in the world that you can't go into and share a pint or a good glass of wine and good company, because you're very, very admired, I would say, in this business. And to quote your beloved Liverpool's famous anthem, Barry Geoghegan, I think you will never walk alone in our business. And it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, Barry. Roger and I have huge admiration for you. I know I speak on behalf of viewers, as we now can call them, of the Moodie Davitt Report and Tripod all around the world in saying that. So stay well. I know you're on the road relentlessly right now, traveling a lot. So stay safe, more particularly Barry, and may your God go with you, and may you stay well, and may your business prosper.
Many thanks, Martin. Thank you for inviting me along today, guys. And I love this format. Keep it going. It's great fun. I actually can't wait for the next one and to keep watching. So it's a lovely idea. Great. Well done, both of you. Happy New Year to everybody. Cheers, guys.
Roger, what an amazing man Barry Geoghegan, the big BFG of our industry is. Wasn't that great?
It was fantastic. I think we're both really lucky, Martin, to call Barry a friend. I've been in the industry just under 13 years. And even though he didn't know me at first, he treated me like an old friend all those years ago. We're very lucky to share a mutual friend, Kiva McCabe, and her family, the McCabes, are very close to Barry's family. So we share some friends. But what a guy. Some stories I didn't even know about him, being a professional footballer or semi-professional footballer. So I learned a lot more about someone I would have already called a friend. But yeah, it was a great guest.
I've never met anyone in our industry that is irrepressible. I think that's the right word for Barry. And he just got so much energy, hasn't he? He's just tireless. If you could bottle Barry as a EDP, I think it'd be a great seller, and spray it on all of us, because it would just imbue us all with that kind of energy and that spirit. So now it was really great talking to him. And Roger, I look forward to seeing you back in a couple of weeks. We've got some very interesting guests, very diverse guests coming up. So look forward to that. Meantime, stay well, stay safe in Dubai. I hope your business is going well. And from me, ladies and gentlemen, it's goodbye. See you next week.
See you next week.